Finally tonight, a story that makes me think twice about ever complaining about the weather again, a heat wave or a long cold spell. Tonight's story begins in the present but takes us back to a brutal, deadly winter in 1944. Anne-Marie Berger has more of your stories of World War II.
We are thankful for this free country. As the years fly by, Wednesday, on June the 6th, 63 years ago, our men hit the beaches of Normandy.
This group gathers at the Elks Lodge in Afton on the second Tuesday of each month, and they always give thanks for this country's freedom. After all, as young men, they were willing to die for it. They are the St. Louis Gateway chapter of the veterans of the Battle of the Bulge. They meet for lunch, to socialize, and to proudly wear their veterans' uniforms.
We do have over 322 active members now.
We are honored today to have as a guest speaker Mr. Ron Keholz.
This group was formed in 1993, and its members come from all across the St. Louis region. They have spent the last 62 years raising families, working hard, and honoring the flag they fought so hard to defend. You can find this group at weekend festivals and in schools talking to young people about the Battle of the Bulge, because after all, no one can tell its story better than those who were there.
My name is Elmer Potsman. I was a frontline combat medic.
I had 188 men in my company, and only 18 of us came back alive and 38 froze to death.
We were told to aim our mortars all four directions because they weren't sure where the Germans were at that point.
The Army had come fast and far last fall. We had developed a certain tendency to become complacent. Complacency came to an end in time for the Christmas season.
The Battle of the Ardennes, more commonly known as the Battle of the Bulge, began on December 16, 1944. The Allied forces had advanced into Germany at a rapid pace, and the Germans planned to neutralize them by splitting the British and American Allied forces in half. The Germans planned their offensive without using radios to ensure a high level of surprise in this attack, and the battle these young American soldiers were about to face was the furthest thing from their minds.
We had no indication of the battle the day before.
Well, you know, we were already into Germany. I thought, well, the war is just about over, so I thought we were going to go home.
They told us that we would be home by Christmas. The only drawback there was they never told us what Christmas that we would be back.
In one day, the enemy smashed through the defenses of the American First Army on a 45-mile front and was biting deep into Luxembourg and Belgium. In 24 hours, the initiative changed hands, and the German army, which had put the word blitzkrieg into all languages, unleashed its desperate offensive.
And between my company and the company from the 28th, it was like a quarter of a mile. And the other way, it was like a half a mile to the rest of our battalion, just open space. And they didn't need the attack in force. They could have just walked through at night, because very seldom were those areas mined. But that's what the situation was the day before the Bulge started. Of course, at 5 o'clock on the morning of the 16th, that changed drastically.
The date to start the Bulge was picked by Hitler when the weather would be bad, so that the ground troops had no support from the Air Force.
Many American soldiers had already been on the front lines for some time when the German troops advanced, creating a deadly bulge, pushing into Allied defenses. Without rest, and in many cases without replenished supplies, American soldiers began fighting the bloodiest battle the U.S. would experience during World War II.
We lost a lot of people, but that was a fact of those battles. It was a continuous battle there. As I say, there was no let-up at all. It was a constant battle. Usually you'll reach a town and it slows down a little bit, but here it was constant battle.
250,000 Germans attacked 60,000 American soldiers. And according to these survivors, there was mass confusion from the very beginning.
I like to describe it in our lectures. The scene was fluid, and in the military, when it's fluid, and nobody knows what's going on.
Well, what we didn't know was the fact we didn't know where the enemy was.
It was confusion.
And
a lot of
thing
confusion.
that we did, we had to progress slowly until we ran into contact with the enemy. And at that particular time, we held until the front line was formed before we could do anything.
The Germans needed to get through the Ardennes forest in the first day. Despite the surprise attack and the heavy American casualties in their initial assault, they didn't accomplish that. They underestimated the American soldier.
The Germans started the Bulge. They come in lockstep, marching down the roads. They were told how easy it was going to be. Overrun the Americans. They're not fighters or anything.
It was individual units, individual people, small units of 10, 12, 15, and smaller that helped control the roads. And there was an awful lot of heroics.
For the first time, cooks, band members, they ended up fighting just like an infantryman was prepared to do, but they weren't. But they did it to save their life, and they fought fearlessly against the enemy.
My heroes were the medics, because the minute somebody was down, they would run out and fire and pick up those bodies or try to help whoever was wounded. They were my heroes.
As the captain said, we were getting ready to unload and go in. He said, remember your training, do your best, and may the good Lord watch over us. Well, I told the captain on going in, I said, Captain, there's a lot of casualties. Yes, he said, there's going to be more. I said, what am I to do? He said, you know your training? I said, yes, sir. He said, you do your best. You take care of the ones that you can take care of. There's going to be a lot of them that you're not going to be able to.
In December, we learned all over again the bitter lesson of war. War is conducted in mist and turmoil and uncertainty. Victory comes on no silver platters.
Surviving the enemy was difficult for the American forces, but equally as challenging was enduring the cold weather. The winter of 1944 and 45 in Germany reached record low temperatures.
The weather was even more serious as the enemy was.
It was the coldest winter in years in Germany. Cold and snow.
It was snow knee-deep, 20 below zero quite often. No way they could dig foxholes or anything.
We had quarter-pound blocks of TNT that we'd chop a hole in the frozen ground and put that down and detonate it and blow a hole to where we could dig a foxhole.
And then once you dug the foxhole and were down in it, you were below freezing level, and you're standing in there in water in your feet. That's why a lot of them had frozen feet.
My shoes never came off for 21 days.
And when you wear an 8.5D shoe and you had to borrow a shoe from somebody that was a 10E and it fit perfect, you can understand how tender your feet were.
As brutal as it may sound, if you were wounded or injured and weren't evacuated in 2 hours or less, the simple fact of life, you froze to death.
Ice on roads stranded military vehicles, but not just for the Americans. The bad weather the Germans hoped would hinder U.S. forces proved a menace for them as well, weakening their assault. And when the skies cleared, Allied air support resumed.
Supplies for the Bastogne defenders brought in by trains of C-47s from bases in Britain and France. A total of 850 missions are flown by the transport planes to provide the isolated troops with ammunition, food, and medicines.
The Battle of the Bulge lasted 45 days, 20 of them in below-zero temperatures. The Americans suffered more than 75,000 casualties, and those soldiers who survived that cold winter in the Ardennes forest will never forget it.
Asked me, was I scared? Yes. You're darn right I was scared. But those are memories and happenings, episodes that are welded into my brain. And they're welded in there that nothing can erase.
We were just a bunch of 20-year-old kids. And today I talk to kids and I say, you got to realize we didn't think we'd live to be 21, and now we're in our 80s.
I don't think any of them showed a whole lot of fear. Everybody had a job to do. Everybody done it. Their outfit's done theirs, and my outfit done ours, and it worked out pretty good.
It was my duty. It was my honor to serve the country. I only did what I was supposed to have done. I only did what was asked of me, and I only did what I wanted to do.
Is the news good from Russia? Remember the lesson of December. Has another Japanese admiral died? Remember the Ardennes forests. Does it look as though finally we can take it easy? Remember the 78,000 Americans lost in the Christmas holidays.